What's going on, everybody? I am here with yet another episode of Depressed Funny People. Guys, I know you've been listening to me talk for it was like 8 episodes straight of me just talking about my shit. But guys, listen, I actually found some professionals. Last week, or not last week, I think it was the week before, I don't know. I had a actual clinical psychologist on the show because I don't want you guys to just listen to me talk. At the end of the day, I want us to get some tools and grow and find out how we can be, less of a piece of trash, and how we can be better people, and how we can deal with the pieces of trash that are in our lives and in the piece of trash year that we're living in. So I have another guest, guys, and I'm so excited about this guest. I want to introduce you to my guest. Thank you for coming on the show. Oh my God, who are you? Tell these people.
So my name is Jessica Jefferson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm also I'm going to get this right, perinatal mental health certified professional. It's like a new title, so I got to work it in. So that's me.
What is that title? The second one?
So a perinatal mental health certified professional is essentially someone who works with parents, so going through their pregnancy phase and postpartum. So things with postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis. It's just a certification. And you've talked about people having specialties. Specialties you need to have training. So that's what that's about.
Oh, so. That's cute. Well, can we? Okay, I'm dying to get this part out. Our origin story, please. Can we? If we please.
When you wrote that in the question, I'm like, I'm not Batman. I know origin story. I'm trying to figure it out.
Listen, no, hours. So
hours. Yes.
Jessica is the first and only girl I ever dated in high school for 2 weeks in 9th grade.
I told my husband, I'm doing this podcast with this guy from high school, and I was telling him the story. He's like, yeah, you've told me about him. I'm like, okay, well, there you go.
You're like, yeah, remember I dated a gay guy in high school?
I couldn't remember if I was your first or last, or was I both?
It was both.
Okay, there we go.
I was like, no, I'm just not meant for this. I was like, this is not for me. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm like, she's such a great girlfriend. You were on it. And I'm like, I just, I am just going to ruin you. So let me go ahead and jump.
I think the furthest we went was a peck. And then we ran our separate corners.
I was running. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know if you know, okay, there's that show Little Women of Atlanta or whatever they're called. You know, Miss Juicy Baby?
My mom talks about it all the time. I've never seen it.
I'm going to send you a clip of she's like, I can't do it. And that's exactly how I felt just now when I thought about me trying to have a whole girlfriend. But no, we were homies though. And so me and Jessica, we go all the way back chiropractic. We were very ratchet together, and we were South Pole. I looked like a Burlington Coat Factory commercial, and we used to be ratchet. But guys, listen, so it's amazing when you go back and look at old friends and you're like, wait a minute, you're a mental health professional? Yeah. I literally phoned a friend this time. So we are doing a special episode today because, listen, we're all out here in the struggle, So we want to talk a little bit about love. So I have my notes. We have an outline. We're going to try to stick to it because I'm a little ratchet. I also know she has a whole ass family, so I'm not trying to keep her up all night.
My kids are bed, bro. They went to bed. They're asleep. My kids are on a schedule. 8:00, you in bed, bro.
Oh, so look at it's really margaritas with mommy time. Girl, I can barely keep plants alive. There's definitely no hope for me, the child, right now, or ever. But anyways, having said that, I want to talk about love and relationships because I have a lot of listeners who are out there in the struggle bus. Praise be to the Lord our God. Somehow I found a man. So I am not on that train right now, but I'm not trying to just leave everybody, back at the station. I want everybody to feel empowered and feel like they're in a good place, as far as, trying to date in this crazy world. So my first thing I want to discuss really quick is, we talked about what you do.
Yes.
Now, I think that people like to downplay the importance of mental health when it comes to finding love and or keeping love. Some people chalk it up to fate, chance, or karma. Where do you think mental health and romantic success intersect? In your opinion, do they intersect at all? Do you think they go hand in hand? What do you think?
Basically, if you're not dealing with your own problems, you're essentially just bringing them into the relationship, right? So I always say that everyone has their baggage, but it's whether or not you're going to have a carry-on size baggage or you have a full trunk load. You know what I mean?
You got to pay extra.
Sure enough, you try to put that luggage on the overhead bin and it's just not fitting. That's the problem.
Man, we need to check this bag.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's really just trying to figure out where where do I stand in the midst of a relationship, and figuring out how you can prioritize yourself first and foremost when you get into a relationship. Because when you get into a relationship, it's not just about you and your partner. You still have to stand as an individual. And if you can't stand on your own 2 feet, how are you going to stand with another person? So you basically got to figure that out.
You be leaning on them. You're not
right, but then it becomes too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you're not understanding like what you need, how are you going to be able to like talk to your partner about what you need them to do for you?
Fair.
Or if you don't know boundaries, how can you set boundaries with your partner? Like all of those things that you need to learn for yourself are things that you're going to apply in a relationship. And if you don't have those at a foundation, then what do you have? Essentially.
Listen to Jessica. I'm sitting here like looking. I'm like, this is like my little friend. I'm like, girl, what you talking about? Sounding all smart, girl. Go off, sis. Okay,
I try. I got to make those student loans work for me somehow, some way.
You're like, shit. You're like, listen, I gotta pay for it somehow. Okay, so in your experience working with couples and singles who are searching for love, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about romance from a mental health standpoint?
There's a lot. So
I believe it.
I always tell couples, and I always tell my single people, like, if you're not willing to take a risk, and if you're not willing to be vulnerable, where are you? You know what I mean? Like, every relationship takes a risk, because if you're not willing to put yourself fully into it, then how are you fully having a relationship? You know what I mean? And you have to be, and I'm not saying that you have to be vulnerable at the outset, but at a certain point, once the relationship turns seriously, like, a person needs to understand who you are in order for the relationship to flourish in the way that it needs to, in the way that it needs to grow. So basically, it's just about understanding that it takes risk and vulnerability. And if you're not willing to do that, then maybe you need to think about, are you ready to really have a relationship, or an honest relationship is, I guess, the way to say it. That's one thing. And then one of the bigger things that I see with couples and singles is that and it kind of goes back to vulnerability, is like, they rather not say anything to avoid conflict, which only like makes the problem bigger. So you need to be able to kind of communicate. And if you're not communicating effectively with your partner, figure out how you can communicate in a better way so that you have the space to talk to them about it, because it's just going to build until it just becomes too much, you know?
So one of the biggest misconceptions is that people don't feel like they need to take a risk.
Right.
And that people feel like
they can't be vulnerable.
They can't be vulnerable, and they can't speak up. They'd rather sweep things under the rug.
Right.
To keep the peace.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people want to avoid having problems. So I go by this approach. It's like, I don't want to bore you with like.
Please don't. I'm all in.
So basically, there's a researcher out there who is able to predict divorce with like a 96% accuracy. Like, he's that like on it when it comes to relationships.
Ooh.
So according to his research, 70% of issues with couples are what they call perpetual problems. So problems that are going to continue to come up. They have no solutions.
Oh.
Right. So if you think about it in that way, it's about how you communicate about the problem that's going to help you guys move forward. And if you're not communicating about it, what's happening? You know what I mean?
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah. When you think about it that way, it's kind of like, ugh.
It's like, perpetual problem. Woo, okay.
I mean, think about it. And not to get like too personal. You don't think you have like problems in your relationship that keep coming? I do.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. And it's about how you move forward.
100%. And I think it's about how you move forward with them, how you communicate about them, and also how you learn to react to them. But I think sweeping them under the rug is the biggest problem of all. You can't act like they don't exist.
No, because then you're only going to build resentment, and then it's just going to cause another problem.
True.
You know, and I'm going to throw statistics out there for you.
I love statistics. I love them. I live for them.
So there's a statistic that it takes a couple 6 years before they go to couples counseling. I'm going to tell you something. If a couple came to me at the beginning, they can be in and out of my office, no problem. If we're going through 6 years of baggage, it's going to be a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're going through 6 years of like, bitch, you've been on my nerves for 6 years.
Yeah. But if you just
Oh,
came at the beginning or figured out how to solve the problem in the or not solve the problem, but communicate about the problem in the beginning, it'll be done and over with, you know?
so the solution to having to these problems that you encounter down the road later on really comes in the very beginning, which is the stage that we're talking about now, the talking, the
Right.
dating, getting to know one another. Guys, you hear that? So ooh, okay, I'm into this. Okay, got it.
You set the foundation at the beginning,
Yes.
because when you set the foundation, you set the expectations.
Mm.
So you want to set the expectations right. You know what I mean? So
Yes, like my boyfriend he would eat Doritos, and I remember the first time I watched him wipe his Dorito dust, like do this over my over my rug, and I looked at him and I was just like, oh, we gotta have a discussion
mhm.
because the expectation is going to be that this is not what we do.
Right.
However, it was funny. I was like, I wiped some Dorito dust on my comforter because my comforter's black, and we were like hungover and like in bed the other watching TV, and he looked at me like, oh, bitch, really? And I'm like,
That's
I said,
ooh.
do as I say, not as I do. I was like, okay, okay. Oh,
Well,
okay. So,
that's also the other problem, because like if you're setting an expectation for your partner and you're
mm-hmm.
not meeting up to it, there's kind of like a problem. I mean,
Hello.
typically you're talking about Dorito dust. I get it, but
But
it's
no,
like,
but that does translate to bigger things for sure.
yeah. Hmm.
You know what? That leads me to the next question. I want to know, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when they're trying to find love?
Thinking that love is instantaneous and not being
Mm-hmm.
open-minded, because people want a partner who's open-minded, but if you're not open-minded to the process, what are you doing? It's not going to be a love connection right off the bat. If it is, great, but it's not always going to be the case. I think we're always looking for that fairy tale romance that just doesn't happen for some people.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I really agree with that because I've always thought that I was going to be like walking in a library and reach for a book, and then he reaches for the book, and then we're like, oh my God. And then it's just like this fairy tale, but it's
I
not
want to
that
throw some
way.
shade right now, but I don't even
Do
know if
it,
I should
please.
have. I was
Just
like, you
do
going to
it.
be at a library, Anthony?
Listen, because I'm reading bitches. That's
Oh,
what I'm doing at the
okay. You've
library.
evolved.
Read a
You've
bit.
evolved.
The library is closed. No, but yeah, I used to have this fantasy, and then I'm learning now that it's a lot of work, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of like non-fantasy moments, and
100%.
I think one of the keys for me actually having a successful relationship, as far as we've gotten, is because I realized because it wasn't that fairy tale for me. I think when I've had these relationships that have started off where like everything's perfect in like the very beginning, it's like, oh my God, it's like a fairy tale fantasy. Like, oh my God, literally we like hate each other in like 2 months because I'm like, okay, the shenanigans are gone. Like, let's get past the act. Let's get past, trying to look perfect for one another. Whereas with this relationship, it's been more of like a give and take. We have our
Right.
little fantasy moments, but then also like I want to strangle you, and now we're starting to learn to deal with those. What are those? What are they? What's those
Perpetual
problems?
problem.
Perpetual problems. Yes.
You know, a relationship, I think perfection is bullshit. I tell all of my clients that perfection is bullshit. You got to let it go, because no one can ever reach perfection, and just no one can ever reach perfection. So you got to let that shit go. In a relationship, and sometimes in life, and this is going to sound weird, you have to kind of strive for good enough. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because if things are good enough 8 times out of 10, that's good. It's not always going to be 10 out of 10 all the time. But if it's good enough to get you to where you need to go and serve a purpose for you, that's where it needs to be. It can't be perfection. It can't be a fairy tale story all the time. It can't be like, dozen roses every 3 days, because that's hard to keep up, because life gets in the
yeah.
way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is masking other things when you see people that are striving so hard to be perfect. Because I've been that person, trying to be the perfect trophy husband that doesn't, always looks great and is always in shape and is always staying, 10 steps ahead. And a lot of that was
I've
masking
seen
my
I've
own
seen your
issues.
Instagram pictures. That's like, oh, shit.
Girl, okay, okay. Well, I mean, it's funny because once I let that go, that trying to be perfect, I was able to really, realize that a lot of the issues I had with myself were in areas that I couldn't, that I was trying to make perfect on the outside. Like I was trying to be like, this body that was so great. I wanted to look good on social media. I wanted to do this and do that, that were outward things that people could see. But it was because there were a lot of inner issues that I'm working through, with this podcast finally. And those were the things that I just did not want to deal with. So I had this, I'm going to be the perfect boyfriend, because if I look perfect, if he thinks I'm perfect, I never have to deal with my real shit. So,
but I think that as you let go of that image, you became more honest with yourself. You became more vulnerable.
1,000%. 1,000%. So,
and can you imagine having someone who loves you when you're honest and you're vulnerable with yourself? That feels even more powerful than the person who's going to love you at the perfect stage.
That's why I looked at this man so crazy when he still liked me after like all my shit. And I'm like, I've just laid everything out there, and you still like me? What? Oh, I guess that's what it's like. I'm like, oh, just kidding. That was a hell of a moment for me to be like, wow, people will still like me even when I'm not being this image of what I think they want from me. And I think that maybe is something that people do experience when they're trying to date, is trying to be the perfect date, the perfect.
I think that's it. You got to like yourself.
If you don't like yourself, how the hell are you going to like somebody else? Isn't that what RuPaul said? Love. She said.
How the hell are you going to like someone else? And then how can you be open to someone liking you if you don't even like yourself?
Oof. That is, yeah, that's real. Mm-hmm. That's real. Because I think a lot of people that don't like themselves, myself included at one point, we try to find someone else to like us because we think that'll make us like ourselves more. Like we get our self-worth through other people showing us that they like us. So if I could find a partner that likes me enough, that means I'm worthy, instead of it being the other way around, which is I know I'm worthy, and now I can go find a partner who's going to also see that worth. It was I hate myself, or I'm upset with myself, or I don't feel like I'm good enough. But if he takes me, then that means maybe I am good enough after all. And I think that's why some people crash so hard when they don't have relationships.
It's that, and I think it's the expectation and the standard that in order to be happy, you have to be in a relationship.
Which is
not realizing that you're always in a relationship with yourself.
Oof. Say that one more time.
I said you're always in a relationship with yourself, because it's true.
That is very accurate. And I think it's fed to us, like every song, every show, every movie, every commercial shows us like you need to have a relationship. Like, yeah. This is where you find your worth. This is where you find your completeness, and not with yourself. Which, well, damn, now when you put it that way, like you always are in a relationship with yourself.
Yeah, and it like, are you going to treat yourself like shit?
You better like that bitch if you're going to be stuck with her.
Yeah.
You better learn to like her.
Bitch ain't going nowhere. Like,
get up under the hood and
work on yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, sorry guys, I just sidetracked. Got a little deep there. We needed that moment. I think it was still going on with the question, but that was good. Okay, so one thing that's on everyone's mind right now, mm-hmm. The last major health crisis that really shook the dating landscape was, I think it was the AIDS epidemic of the 80s. And even that was more it was prevalent more in within the gay community, mm-hmm. Whereas I think coronavirus now is affecting literally everyone, every corner of the world, every demographic, every gender, every sexual orientation. So do you think that coronavirus is going to permanently impact the way we date and our attitudes, change our attitudes around dating and around love and finding romance?
Yes and no. I think that, because we had the online dating platform, I think the coronavirus didn't really affect that necessarily. I mean, there was some adjustments because obviously the point is to do in-person dating at some point in time. So I think people just shifted to virtual dates, which for me, I think is kind of like a nice step in between an in-person date and texting, because then you could just kind of gel with someone and not have to go out,
It's cheaper
and it's safer and you can leave if it's not working. I feel like it's a nice half step between the two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I also think that, it's not just coronavirus. It's everything that's happening with society. People always say that politics are always off the table, but I think that because of the way things are shifting now, I think that people are more apt to want to talk about politics, want to see where other people stand, because they want to make sure that there's with someone that's simpatico to their kind of beliefs. So I think it does shift in that perspective, which is not I guess it's coronavirus related.
2020 related. We'll just say 2020.
The shitstorm of 2020.
2020 has got people asking very probably uncomfortable questions, which is our next question on first dates. Because I do want to move into some questions for my single listeners out there, all my single ladies, gentlemen, and people who don't conform to a gender binary. We want to know, what are some appropriate but important questions to ask when getting to know someone? And like we were saying, politics are on the table now. So what do you think are, in your opinion, what should people be asking now when they're on dates? Like, what are good pre-screening, vetting questions that aren't too intrusive?
Okay, so I have a few, and some of them are actually questions that I ask my clients, because I think for me, it just kind of gives me a better picture of who they are as a person.
Okay.
So one of the questions I ask my clients at the first session is what we call a miracle question. So I'm like, okay, Anthony, let's say everything works the way that you wanted to. Coronavirus is gone, you know, all your projects go the right way. What does 6 months look like for you? That tells me, like, for you, what is your goals? Like, what are you working towards? What are your aspirations? In a way that's like, if things were to go perfectly and nothing got in your way, like, what are your hopes, you know? So for me, I always like asking that question for my clients, because that tells me the direction that we need to go. And then for people who are single, it's kind of like, do I want to be on that path with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. If they're like, I want to climb Mount Everest, it's like, okay.
I'll watch you from afar.
I'll watch you on Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah. Another question is kind of figuring out, like, hey, like, you know, what does a normal Tuesday look like for you? You know what I mean? Like, figuring out what they do throughout the day and kind of figuring out if that's something that gels with, you know, again, your lifestyle. For me, I think that another kind of thing that coronavirus has shifted is people want to know how people deal with stress, right? So it's kind of like, you know, what are your go-to stress relievers? What do you do to like unwind? I think it's good to know, because like if someone's like, I'm pounding White Claws from noon to dawn, I'm like, you know, that might not be for me.
Yeah.
But if they have like healthy things, or maybe things that maybe you might find useful, or things that you want to maybe do with them together, I think like, that's always good.
Like working out, or that they say, I like to, you know, art is something I like to do, like to paint. And they're like, girl, me too. And they're like, oh my God, that's a great way to relieve stress. You're artistic.
Yeah.
Without having to ask super specific questions. I guess that really opens it up for them.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to share what makes them stressed out, which is nice to know, like maybe a few dates out. But it's kind of nice to know, like at the outset, what do they like to do? I always like to, and this is another question that I ask clients, like, I want you, tell me like someone from like pop culture, TV shows, who do you like aspire? Who do you like character wise? You know, like who can you relate to, you know? Okay. And then it's kind of like, if you know who they're talking about, then you get a sense of, you know, who they are as a person. Or if they don't know who they're talking about, it opens up another conversation about, oh, tell me about that show. What's that show about? It like leads into a different direction. So I think it opens up more conversation. And the last thing is like, what's the best advice someone's given to you? Because then it's kind of like, okay, what's their personal mantra? Like, what do they like to hold on to, and how to like to kind of get them up, you know, and running again.
Okay. I like that. It's funny. So I like those. And I think that those are pretty open-ended in the way that people can have those, you can start those conversations and they can lead and open up to some other things.
Yeah. And they're not too intrusive.
Know more. Yeah, and they're not too intrusive. Well, it's funny because I kind of researched what some of these, you know, writers on these for all these blogs and you know, magazines think that we should be asking on first dates, and I just want to know what you think about them. So, one here is they said ask about their family and childhood. I think that's like a few dates in.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I've been trying to be on my YouTube channel and I've been forgetting. One of the things that I always stress to people is allow like those kind of conversations to be a few dates in, because not everyone's going to divulge their like family, like what if they have like a shitty family history? You know what I mean? And
Hello.
they don't want to talk about that. Okay.
Hello, Kitty. I'm not telling mine. It's the first date. Actually, I might
Right.
have. Maybe not. No, maybe not. No, I didn't.
Just gotta think about it.
I didn't.
I think that's more of a conversation for them to be open to. I think that's a few dates in, to be quite honest with you.
Okay. All right. Well, I have another one. This one I think is pretty good. It says, does someone think they're in a relationship with you right now?
Well, what if they say no and the other person does? Like, you don't know what the other person's thinking.
No, they're saying like another person outside of the date.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if that other person is like cuckoo crazy, thinking that they're in a relationship, but the person you're on a date with doesn't, and he answers truthfully, it's kind of like,
well, that saves me from getting shot by this bitch that might run up on us after dinner because she thinks she's dating him. I think I kind of like that one, but then again, the answers you might get. What about?
Well, let me go back to that question.
Okay,
because that's
okay.
First date, understand that when people go on a first date, they're not attached to you. You know what I mean? So they could be dating around, and honestly, unless you're exclusive, you don't have dibs on a person. You know what I mean? So kind of like if someone was thinking they're in a dating relationship, I mean, would they technically be wrong?
No, and so maybe it's not your business yet.
It's not your business yet until you get to a point where it is your business.
Ooh, you know what? Okay. I see that. Maybe that's like third date, fourth date.
Well, that goes back to vulnerability and having those conversations. I think one of the questions later is like, how do you know when you're supposed to have like that conversation?
Yeah.
If by the third date, and again, it depends on like the length of time, you feel like things are getting serious, then yes, I would definitely ask that question if you want to take it to the next level.
And when do you ask about monogamy?
Like exclusivity?
Exclusivity and monogamy, like, are you, what is your ideal relationship structure look like? Do you like one partner, two partners, open, closed?
So in terms of figuring out that stuff, well, that's kind of fluid, to be quite honest with you, because I've had clients who have been in monogamous relationships and over time evolved into an open one.
Got it.
So I think it really depends on what you guys are comfortable with. I do think that when you have that conversation about exclusivity and trying to figure out what the next stage is, I think hopefully the other person would be open to say, like, I'm not looking to be exclusive. I'm looking to date around. And that would probably open up that conversation of maybe not being monogamous. And understand. I gotta go back. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back and forth.
I love going back. It's fine.
If at the outset of dating, I think you have to, before you even talk to someone, figure out what your expectations are. So if you're thinking about having a monogamous relationship, then I want you to stick to that boundary because that's what you want, and not necessarily adjust and be fluid based on someone else's preference, because that's what they tell you maybe 4 dates in.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So it's important to kind of assess if you want to be in a monogamous relationship or you want to be in an open relationship. Like, there's no judgment here. Just make sure you stick to that because that's what you want ultimately, because I've seen it where it becomes a point of resentment later on because things have shifted and changed where you kind of didn't want them to. But it should be part of that kind of exclusivity conversation.
Which we have that coming up. So the questions we're moving to now are asked by listeners. And I came up with a name for you guys. My listeners, you guys are my antidepressants, by the way.
Oh my God.
My little fun name. Like Gaga has her monsters. Beyonce has the beehive. I have my antidepressants. So thank you guys for being my antidepressants. But my antidepressants wrote me some questions. So let's see here. We're going to dive into these. What is the appropriate way to state your intentions? Oh, wait, this is it. What is the appropriate way to state your intentions or ask about someone's intentions? Like, should we even start talking before discussing it or just come straight out with it? Or does that come off as too intense?
So we're in the age of online dating. So I'm going to assume that pretty much 98% of the population is online dating. So one of the benefits of online dating is you could probably stress those intentions on your profile in like your own words, so that it's kind of already there and kind of already stated. So it's not like, when you then do have the conversation, it's like a surprise. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing, because that space is not just about selling yourself, quote unquote. It's about understanding what you're looking for in a partner too.
True.
So use that space wisely and say, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship. I'm looking for someone who's willing to be in an open relationship and non-committed or whatever, maybe the other way around. So utilizing that space wisely is kind of important.
That's good.
And then I think that, and it goes back to what we were saying before, if you're going to ask and have expectations of someone, you have to be able to match it or be close. So if my expectations is like my partner needs to be like 6 figures and I'm hustling at McDonald's, we're not necessarily at the same pace, because he might want someone who's he might be looking for someone who's at his same level. You know what I mean? Not to say that McDonald's, you're not hustling it to get to that level, but also understand that some people are maybe not willing to wait, till you get to that point. So, yeah.
Well, and that's fair. And I think if you're not willing to wait, it's also like, girl. So you know what? Speaking of using that space that is the profile, dating profiles, right? Using it wisely. I have some thoughts just thinking back to when I dated online, and because that's how I met my partner, my boyfriend, whatever you want to call him. That's how I met him, on Tinder, actually. So I think that when it comes to that space, I think a lot of people would love the idea of just being super transparent and saying, this is what I want. But I feel like in this generation, especially, and maybe it's always been going on, but I feel like we are afraid to be vulnerable, like you were saying, because we almost feel like people will look at you as like you're thirsty, or you're crazy, or you're too intense. But then again, it's like, I think when we try to play it too cool and just say, I'm going to talk about, how much I love pizza and watching The Office. I think that if you find people that aren't checking the boxes that you were looking for, if you never put the boxes in place to be checked, you can't really.
But it could be a balance. It could be saying like, you know what, I want to find someone who's willing to come over on a Thursday night, just the two of us, eat a box of pizza, watch The Office, and cuddle. You're stating you want to be monogamous. You want someone to spend quality time with you, and these are the things that you want to do.
Okay,
so you're doing it in that way. Yeah,
kind of taking those casual moments that we have, or casual ways we have of communicating, like our basic wants, needs, and kind of making them more intentional. So you could talk about pizza in The Office, but use it in a more intentional way that kind of states, hey, I'm looking for something more than just, whatever. Something a bit more. Okay.
Paint someone a picture of the relationship that you want to have. You know what I mean? And again, I think transparency, I don't understand why that's such like a bad thing, when I'd rather be transparent than, find 5 dates later that the bitch ain't what she said she was. You know what I mean? Like,
Correct.
Let me know.
Correct.
So,
let a bitch know up front.
Yeah.
So maybe just being more intentional. And then, like you said, painting pictures. I think that is actually a really good suggestion, because you can find ways to weave in your hobbies and the fun, light things you want to mention.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when we keep it too light and we keep it too cool, we can't really. I mean, that kind of leads us to finding some of these vague connections that we're just like, who the fuck is this person? Like, we have nothing in common, or they're a complete fuckboy or a piece of trash, But it's like if you want
a fuckboy, be transparent about it. I want a fuckboy. You know what I mean?
Sign up, please. You're like, sign up. Play games with me, please. Because maybe you're a fuck girl who wants a fuck boy. You're like, you know what? I just want something casual. Let's just hurt each other's feelings for a few months.
Why not? I mean, if that's what you want, go for it.
Different strokes for different folks. Okay, I'm into that. Let's see. I have another one from another antidepressant. Let's see here. What are healthy indicators that you're ready to date after a long-term relationship?
Here's a side note. I felt mad fucking old because I read that question. I was like, what the fuck is an LTR? I had to Google search it because I was like, what the fuck is that?
Like, LTR.
And then I realized it was a long-term relationship. I'm like, okay. So there are a few things to talk about. So if you're able to have a conversation about your ex without getting angry or upset, it's a good thing. That's one.
Okay.
If you're able to recognize the mistakes that you made in that relationship, and that's hard for people to realize that they could potentially have been part of the problem. right?
Got it. That's tough.
So it could be something as I didn't set my boundaries, or I wasn't communicating properly, or maybe I wasn't listening or meeting his needs the way or he or she was saying or they were saying. You have to be able to recognize your mistakes, because a relationship takes two people, not just one.
For sure.
Other than if it's an abusive relationship, I will asterisk that part.
Yes.
So you got to be okay with being alone, because I think if you're okay with being alone, you're not going to be desperate to move into a next relationship, first and foremost, because you're not going to settle. I mean, and then what did you learn about yourself? I always like to ask, like when I have clients who are going through a breakup, tell me what your relationship self looked like. What did you like about that person, and what didn't you like about that person? Because we evolve into a relationship self when you get into a relationship. So you're trying to think about, okay, when I'm in a relationship, I do this and I don't like that. So in my next relationship, I don't want to do that anymore. Ooh. So figuring about what are those things that you want to evolve entering into your next relationship, I think are important.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And relationship self, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in some ways, if we're not careful, I mean, even without even trying, I think there's certain things that we change about our personality when we get into a relationship.
Right.
Even if they're like, subconscious, or maybe even if they're not bad things. But I do think if we're not careful, we can kind of become somebody else.
I mean, a relationship is two people, but you don't want to merge into like one identity, because I always say you have to be able to stand on your own, because if I have someone who comes into my office and I'm like, okay, so you hang out with your boyfriend every day. When do you hang out with yourself? What do you do with yourself? Why aren't you hanging out with yourself? You know what I mean? Because it can't be just about your relationship. There has to be time for you. There has to be time for you. So, yeah.
Ooh. So okay, listen, I'm all about it. And I think being able to hear your ex's name being brought up and not get angry is definitely a huge sign that you might be ready.
Because you're not holding on to something.
Got it.
That's why,
I like that. Let's see. Okay, why is dating without sex such a taboo? So why do people take so much issue with sexless relationships? Like, why is that such a urban legend?
I wouldn't say it's an urban legend. I mean, she used the word taboo, and taboo is like against the norm. That's why it becomes a problem, because people think it's against the norm. But like, if you look back in history, there were a lot of relationships that you didn't have sex on the first date, and having sex on the first date was taboo. So it's about how we've kind of adapted this new relationship structure. And first and foremost, a relationship only has to work for the two people in it. It don't have to work for anyone else. So if it works for you and your partner, then it works for you and your partner. It doesn't matter what everyone else thinks. And like, if you're someone who's looking for a partner who is going to respect the fact that you don't want to have sex, it goes back to, you want to find someone who's going to respect your boundaries. Because again, that's going to set the foundation. Oh, he respected, or she respected, or they respected my boundaries at the outset. I know that they're going to respect it later down the line. Again, setting the foundation of, this is my boundary and I'm sticking to it.
That's
again,
awesome.
You gotta know what you want, because that's what's most important.
And set that shit up front. Be like, hey, listen, and stick to it. Ooh, okay,
yeah.
okay. What is an appropriate frequency to see someone you just started getting to know?
Okay.
Some people go balls to the walls. I mean, been there.
Well, okay, so I don't think it's just about how often you see them physically. I think it's also about how often you're communicating. You know what I mean? Because if you're seeing them once a week, but you're communicating every hour, and you're like only dating, that might be a little bit too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want someone to miss you. And that even goes when you're like in a marriage. Like, I want my fucking husband to miss me. You know what I mean?
Right. And be like, where is she? You're like, hiding, talking to Anthony.
So, I think it depends on the frequency of that you're texting. Here's the problem that I find a lot more now with dating.
Ooh, okay.
is that, and this is not my concept. If anyone who's single or like in a new relationship, there is a podcast by Nicole Byer. It says, "Why Won't You Date Me?" This is her.
Yes.
I'm not going to take her shit, but this is, she says that, that bitch is going to sue me. I don't got money for that. So she says that, she says that texting builds a lot of emotional intimacy, and it does, because people are more apt to be honest behind a screen than they are in person. So you have to be mindful of how often you are texting and, you know, what you're talking about, because you're putting yourself a lot out there. I know I talked about being vulnerable, but again, vulnerability is something you build with time. You're not just going to show up, be vulnerable right at the outset. You still have to be kind of like, has this person earned my vulnerability? You know what I mean? So when you talk about frequency, you also got to talk about how often you're communicating as well. Because it's both. It's not just one or the other. But I always say, like, if you're in a relationship and you're dating, I say at minimum once a week.
That's fair.
Once a week. Yeah.
I
don't think that's that bad. Yeah. And I think also when it comes to dating, you want to have like your non-productive dates where you're just like Netflixing and chilling. And then you also want to have like your interactive dates where you're like doing something together. So I think it's good to have a mix of two.
Got it. I think there's balance to be had. And it's funny because now that you say that, it's, you know, I always was a believer that like when you get together with somebody and you start talking, like you like text all day, you're like up at like 3 a.m, like texting them, like tired at work the next day because you were up all night, like just chatting on the phone. And it's funny because this is the first relationship that I did not have that in the beginning. Because my boyfriend is like, he doesn't talk that much. Like he's a talker, but he doesn't talk that much. And he does not like texting. And he's a very big on building intimacy and on building trust with someone before he's like all talking to you and all like chatty Cathy. Whereas, you know, me, like I was just like meow, 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 meow. And he was just like, skirt. Like I was like, I haven't, you know how many times I almost stopped talking to him because it went like 2 days. I'm like, where have you been? I've not texted you. You have not texted me. He's like, I was busy for the weekend and I've known you for 2 weeks. Can you chill? And I'm like, no. So I was just like, well, I just reactivated my Tinder account, but thank you very much.
But again, it's about that earned, like, have you earned that perspective? Like you don't have dibs on a person. Correct. They're their own human being. They're not your property. So you got to earn, you know, the different levels. It's like Mario Kart or whatever. You gotta like get on to the next level. You gotta earn that shit. You know what I mean? You gotta
work for it.
Yeah.
And that's not something I was used to. And because I'm very like impatient and like instant gratification. But I will say, this being the first relationship that I actually did work for it, I'm like, it's still working. What do you know?
I think the instant gratification is the bullshit that we deal with society. Everything is instant.
You know what I mean? Microwave.
Pop it in the microwave, go on Twitter, get your instant news, you know, like it's all like, oh, Netflix, I don't have to wait for the DVD to come in the mail anymore. I get it right then and there. Like everything is so instantaneous, and that can't necessarily always apply in every situation. Like relationships are not 98 Day Fiance all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my God, we love that show. I've
never seen it, but everyone fucking talks about it. Like my mom's talking about it. I'm like, oh my God. We just started it.
We started with season 6. So if you want to start with the good one, season 6 was lit. We started it like a month ago, and like it's now our guilty pleasure. So
I have a lot of things that I want to watch. I just haven't
add it to the list. You'll get there at some point. But no, I do agree that does make sense. Frequency, and then also earning. And I will say, based on my personal experience, it does feel a lot more worthwhile after I did actually work towards building that intimacy with someone, as opposed to the people who throw it at you, because a lot of the times what they throw at you isn't always genuine. And a lot of the times it is a show to be, this is what I want to get to this result with you. This is what I think I should be doing. So now I'm going to throw these things that you want to hear at you.
It feels weird. Yeah. It feels weird to be like, why are you like so, it's just so off-putting to like feel, it creates responsibility. That's what it is. It creates a burden, and it makes you feel like weird of like, oh shit, like this person just told me their whole fucking life story. Now I'm responsible to carry it and like hold them through it. And I'm like, oh shit, that just feels weird.
Ooh, I haven't even thought about that, but it does create responsibility. Oof. So guys, don't be sharing your whole thing in the very beginning. Please do not. I talked about in one episode dumping. Don't dump on people.
No. I don't even think you should dump on friends, to be quite honest with you. You know,
your friends are not your therapists.
And I gotta tell you, I have so many clients who are like, they come to me talking about their friend shit. I'm like, wait a minute, this is your hour.
Literally.
This is not theirs. You know what I mean?
Is your friend paying your copay? Because, sweetie.
No.
No, but I talked about friend dumping, and I said, especially right now, like, people have a certain amount of emotional, mental bandwidth, and they need to be using that to protect themselves. We're in survival mode. Like, it's a whole ass pandemic and a whole ass Trump out here, girl. We need as much of that bandwidth as we can use for ourselves. So people don't have the space for it right now.
I also think that you also have to think about some of the rules that we apply in romantic relationships, why we're not applying it in friendships.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Okay. Like you have to have boundaries with your friendship. You have to have honesty with your friendships. You have to have vulnerability with your friendships. Those things have to be earned. And it's not like once you earn it, you have it for life. Because once you break it, you got to earn it again. You know what I mean? So understanding that, you know, every relationship has this kind of structure. And I mean, there's another point. I forgot what it was. This shit happens to me all the time in session. I'm like, oh, fuck, I had a question. I forgot. But
I got the pencil, be like, ooh, write it down. Okay, I have a next question. Does body count even matter anymore? Why or why not? Body count isn't how many people you've been hunching.
I was like, who are you fucking murdering? Body count? What's this?
I think that's like an urban, like, slang term, like body count. But I mean, do people still count? I mean, I just know.
Here's the thing. Your partner has a history before you. Correct. You know what I mean? Like, and let's say their body count is higher than you thought they would it be? What does that then mean to you if they have a high body count? Is it that you don't trust them anymore based on who they were before you? And there's no evidence that they've done anything to you. Correct. So what's the problem? You know what I mean? The only issue that I have with body count is if it's still going up while you're dating. And it's, you know what I mean?
That's fair.
I've never been one to be like, tell me about how many people you've had sex with, because that's not relevant. As long as you're not having sex within a relationship, that's fine. Like, I don't know my husband's body count, and I don't care. I don't fucking want to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My boyfriend, I first personally, like, I don't count my own, or I didn't when I was single. After I was like 23, like, it didn't matter. Like, I'm a grown ass person. Like, what I'm not going to do is count that. Number two, I didn't ask my boyfriend when we got together, because my thing is this, like, I've learned the hard way not to ask questions that are going to hurt my feelings. Like, I have to ask myself at the onset, before I ask this, if I get an answer that is not what I want to hear, is that going to hurt my feelings, or am I going to be okay? Because if it's going to hurt my feelings, let me just shut the hell up.
And then you're not justified for getting mad because you asked the question.
You can't get mad at all because you hurt your own feelings. So, whoever wrote that body count does not fuck body count.
I don't think it matters. I mean, again, if that's something that's important for you, the question is why?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is if you're concerned about, like, elasticity, but I think the human body is resilient, girl. It will go back. Will go back.
Elasticity? What are we talking about? Are we talking about vagina rejuvenation? Go to the doctor, get it done.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, with like wear and tear, on tires, sometimes the threading goes down.
There's physical therapy for those areas.
And then, in the rear, I mean, they can do surgeries on that too. I mean, if that's what you're concerned about, I mean, you can just find out on your own. Like, you don't have to ask how many people you've been with. You could just because there's other things that could cause elasticity issues. So, I mean, if that's why,
but that's more like a physical, like, you need to have a physical therapist on for that, not necessarily
correct. Because I'm like, listen, some people are into that. Do what you do. Okay, I'm disgusting. Let me shut up. Okay. I have another one. This one's kind of good because I read this one and didn't know what to say. How soon should I tell my my new potential partner about my mental health disorder? Is that second date or second month?
So I think, again, it's one of those, like, gradual kind of vulnerability conversations. If you're someone that's dealing with anxiety or depression and you're having, like, a really bad day, you can have those conversations without necessarily saying I have diagnosed depression if you're not ready to have that conversation. So it's about telling your partner, like, listen, I had a really bad day. I just need time. Or this is where it's important. Advocating maybe what they can do to help you
Mm-hmm.
is important, and kind of seeing how they adjust. It does become a problem when you find a partner who's not respecting of your mental health issues and who feel like they can solve it. Mental health issues don't have a solution. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't expect to solve everyone's problems. What I can do is be an ear and be a support. You know what I mean?
Got it.
So you can teach them those things without necessarily having to divulge that you have a mental health disorder until you feel ready to do that. So just saying like, I have a bad day, like I could really use someone to talk to. I always say at the outset, I'm looking to vent. I'm not looking for solutions.
Fair.
Because some people have to know at the outset
that is actually, because I'm a fixer. So I'm all about like, you tell me your issues, I'm going to listen and then be like, okay, so how can we fix this problem? Like, that's how my brain works. But not everyone
fixing it is just listening.
Not everyone needs that. Yeah. They don't need you to go slap your coworker. Like, they don't need me to go.
They sure enough don't.
They just need you to listen. So I think that's something I've definitely learned how to do more, being in a long-term relationship, and also just working with my friends, moving away and being farther away from my friends. Like, I had to talk to them about things long distance, so I couldn't be there. So right. I just had to listen. I'm like, I'm just talk. Like, what is popping?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's accurate. I also think that, as a person who does have my own mental health issues, I will say that you need to make sure that you are either managing your mental health issues and or confronting them before you decide to get in a relationship and drop that on someone else. You don't need to be perfect when you get with someone, but I think you need to be actively managing being okay. Because I've had like some people that are just not okay, but they think a relationship will fix it.
Relationship doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
A relationship should be an addition to something.
Ooh.
Not a void of something else. You know what I mean? Or filling a void of something else. It's supposed to be an addition to you. And definitely, I think that, if the one thing that kind of is a little bit of pet peeve is when people come to me, not my clients, because my clients, they're different, like friends who come to me with the same problem over and over again. And I'm like, what are you doing to kind of resolve it on your own? Now, I'm not giving them advice.
Yes, but that drives me crazy.
And it's kind of like, at what point are you going to make changes to move forward? Because then it becomes like, I don't want to talk to you if this is always going to be our conversation.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
That is, I think I talked about it. I'd be sitting and talking on these episodes. Sometimes I have no idea what I said until like
you have said it before. Yeah.
I think my friends that like, I'm like, girl, like I get it. Right. But at some point you're going to have to take ownership and responsibility for this shit. Cause I mean, at the end of the day, like, girl, like we're tired. We're all tired.
It goes back to what I was saying. Where are you the part of the problem?
Yes. That's huge.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe you don't own 100% of the problem, but if you own that 10%, what's that 10% and why are you continuing to repeat the cycle?
Yeah. So figure that out, because that is definitely huge. Okay. I have another one from another listener. Okay. How valid is our intuition when it comes to qualifying potential partners? And I think I have another one that's very similar that I'm going to ask at the same time. They said, if I don't feel a vibe or get a strong connection straight off, then I don't want to waste my time and I'm not interested. But then people always tell me you should like give it a chance and not be so short. I just think if you give it a chance, then you might be forcing something that isn't right. So I think this person is basically asking the same thing the other person asked, which is how valid is our intuition when it comes to qualifying potential partners?
I do think that your gut does play a good part in like decision making. They always say that your gut is mostly always right. However, it's very hard to assess what's your gut and what's anxiety. You know what I mean? So for me, it's kind of like, okay, what's the evidence that you have that will support your gut? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So if you have evidence the first time and you have your gut telling you one thing, okay, boom, make your move. You know what I mean? But if it's just your gut, I think that at some outset there is a point where conversation has to happen. Because let's say, for example, your gut is telling you that, I'm just going to come up with a random example, like your man is cheating because he's not returning your text messages, right? Well, maybe he's not returning your text messages because he's busy at work, or maybe he's out buying you flowers and doesn't want to tell you where you are. Like, have
Correct.
evidence, towards it. That's kind of where, again, risk comes into play. At the core of a relationship, there is risk, always risk. There's, never not risk in a relationship. So yes, your gut can be right, but I also think it should tie back to evidence of it's just not working.
So if you have evidence that he is probably a fuckboy, then maybe when your intuition is telling you like just don't pursue this. Maybe
Right.
there's more to it than just being like, I got a weird vibe. Unless you can kind of pinpoint what that vibe really meant.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about asking questions about the other person. It's got to ask questions about yourself. Why am I having this gut reaction? You know what I mean? Because maybe at core levels, some of the behaviors are repeating cycles from your old relationships, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is your old relationship.
True.
You know what I mean? So that's why I always think it's always good to have evidence. And one piece of evidence that is like very like, you're guilty, use it, and then, like I said, make your move.
Literally, because it could be a million different triggers. It could be, okay, he has the same cologne as my boyfriend, and it's like bringing back these like weird memories, and now I'm sitting at this table, and now I'm freaking out.
Your nose sensory is very powerful because it's so closely tied to your brain.
That's why when you smell something, like you can have a whole like deja vu memory.
It triggers memories, yeah.
Like I will have like, I remember like I'll smell something, I'm like, oh, my preschool, like what is going on? Like I'll have like elementary school, like this just like reminded me of like 5th grade. I don't even know why, but whatever that smell was, like, oh wow. So yeah, maybe take that into account. Also take into account like how anxious are you that day? Like that might be why your gut is telling you like jump ship.
Anxiety is a bitch. You know what I mean? And I think that the problem with anxiety is there to help you. That people don't understand that anxiety is like a safety flashing thing. So you don't want to get rid of anxiety because it's necessary. But when it becomes like debilitating, that's when it becomes a problem.
Fair. No, and trust me, I'm literally, listen, on my next diary episode, guys, I'm going to talk about my whole experience with intuition versus anxiety. It happened tonight on my way home from work. So
listen, I can speak from gut. I had a gut thing happen 2 weeks ago, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go by my gut. I'm going to wait for evidence. Evidence came. I was like, fucking shit. I was like, I need to be 1-800 Miss Cleo. I was like, oh my God. Like,
call me now for your free psychic reading. Girl, I'm going to put a 800 number at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. But like, I couldn't just go based on my gut. I had to have evidence. And unfortunately, in this situation, I did have evidence, but shit happens.
That's fair. And I think that's like, I noticed that at work and with clients and, and in other areas of my life, intuition versus, just general anxiety or bias that you have that you don't realize. Like there's a whole bunch of things that come into play. Bias triggers, and it's not always just your gut. I think we put a lot more, we put a little too much stock into just simply if you feel it's right. Yeah.
And I think we're human beings. Sometimes we need a little bit of, leeway.
Or did you like eat Taco Bell, girl? Like, how are you gonna trust your gut when your gut is bubbling? Like, really? Really? I think not. Okay, so all right, here's another one. Ooh, okay, this is a good one. Even they're all good, but this is really good. What are some tips for dating outside of your race in 2020?
First and foremost is recognize your own biases. First and foremost. You know what I mean? I think people come with the assumption of a particular population that may not necessarily be true. And, just because someone's of a particular race or culture doesn't necessarily mean they adhere to everything that race and culture stands for. So recognizing your own biases, recognizing maybe potential cultural differences. And again, the relationship only has to work for the two people in it. So if you're in a situation where maybe your friends or your family don't necessarily agree with it, they don't have to, unless there's a safety issue. The relationship is not for them. And I also think like it's good to like maybe utilize those differences to learn something new and potentially maybe create your own traditions with your partner and make it more special and meaningful for you.
Ooh, I like that. And I also
Yeah.
want to point out one thing people seem to forget is that literally any and everyone has biases, no matter what you look like. Because
Mhm.
I'll see so many people that's like, I have a black friend, or like, I'm Puerto Rican, I can't be racist, or I can't be, I'm this, I can't be that, or listen, I'm black, I can't be. I'm like, you are
Yes,
problematic as
ma'am.
hell, sir, because
Yeah.
I heard your black self just say something very transphobic. So let's back it up because these biases can extend outside of just race.
Yeah.
It really comes out how we all look at other people in the world. So, um, yeah, I think that's important too. That's good.
It's,
Biases.
I mean, people are more about the experience and kind of the benefit that they can provide for you. I think people always look at it as a negative. Like
Yeah,
what are they not offering me or why are they different versus thinking about the similarities between the two people? Like
what you can
why don't we
gain.
reflect more on that? Yeah. I mean, not what you, I mean, yeah, what you can gain, but you don't want to be like an
Well, I mean, what
asshole
you
and
can
like,
learn. Gain isn't learn. Gain
yeah.
isn't learn. Not be like, what can I get from this bitch? What can I get from her? Oh, she got money. No, what can you learn? Because I'm in an interracial, intercultural relationship right now, and
Mhm.
I realize my own, privilege that I didn't even realize as, being an American citizen,
Yeah.
because my boyfriend is an immigrant. And,
Mhm.
that's something that I hadn't realized. And then he was like talking to me about, his privilege, because he's like, listen, like I know my privilege. Like I'm Latino, but I'm white passing. I completely have learned, there's a big difference there. And, we kind of have like our privilege off where I'm like, well, no, I feel this. And he's like, no, listen, like you're the one you're in the shitty boat. And I'm like, but so are you. And then we like, yeah, that's why I'm going to ride hard about when people talk shit about immigrants. And he's like, I wish somebody would have something to say about somebody black. And I think that's where we've
It's,
grown a lot together.
I mean, and it's always, we're always learning and evolving. Like, for example, my husband's, he's half black, half Puerto Rican. So, when people look at him, they see him as black. They don't see his Hispanic side. So, it's been a conversation about with my kids who look more Hispanic about, kind of the differences in the way, my husband's treated versus the way I'm treated, even though like we're both from minority cultures, but our experiences are completely different because of race.
Mm,
So it's always an evolving conversation.
for sure. And I think that there's more to gain. But I think you need to be open to those conversations. And I don't think you can
Mhm.
go into dating outside of your race and saying you're colorblind or trying not to see the color.
I hate that.
I hate that because you're discounting and you're erasing something that actually has a lot of value, which
Mhm.
the color and culture of your partner is something that should be celebrated.
When you talked about your experience with your first therapist, I was like, fucking, are you
Oh,
fucking serious with me? Like,
girl.
I don't understand at what point a therapist gets to pinpoint what's important and not important for a client.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's about you and your experience. It's not about me. It's not about what I did or what I had for lunch. It's about the client. And I've had these conversations with so many. I had a client one day tell me, or on her first session, tell me her last therapist was telling her that she needs to remove her tattoos, that the tattoos are unsightly. And I'm like, no, bitch.
What?
Let's have a conversation about what your tattoos. What meaning does your tattoos hold, and why are they important to you? Because it's not about me. It's about you. Because your tattoos cover meaning, and like the conversation, like therapists are not perfect. And again, perfection is bullshit.
Yeah.
But you have to find that person that's going to make the experience about you,
Girl,
not
unless
about
it's
them.
a SWAT sticker on your forehead, I think you really need to pray on why he's
That's
telling you to get these. I mean, even then, he could have just told you to cut bangs. Be like, girl, you just need to get some bangs. Like, no,
yeah.
I think it needs to be a big part of the conversation. I hate when people are like colorblind and they don't want to discuss it and they don't think it's important because it doesn't have to be a negative, like you were saying. Like, if
Mm-mm.
you are white dating a black guy, the fact that you acknowledge that he's black can be more of a celebration or can be more of a learning experience and not so much of a, I have to acknowledge constantly, that I have white privilege. You do. But I
Yeah.
think you also need to, come at it from a positive angle too. Like there's a lot I can
Right.
learn and not just an apology to her.
I think that people fail to realize that they're always working in a relationship and they're always learning in life. Those
Yeah.
two things never stop. And I think that's the problem. People think that they've reached a level of maturity where those things end and they never do.
Whew. Okay. I have another one from a friend who says, "Why am I so comfortable and content with being single? Should I be worried?"
I say no. What's wrong with being comfortable with that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're comfortable waiting for the right person. That shit's legit for me. You know what I mean? Like, again, you don't have to be in a relationship. If you're comfortable being you, you're comfortable in your own skin. There's no problem with that in my eyes.
Yeah, I think, I'm not a professional here. I just run my mouth, but I think maybe, I think that's right. I do agree with her. I will also ask you, when you're saying you're comfortable, are you comfortable or are you avoiding it? And
It's a good
maybe
question.
ask, are you, when you think about dating, what comes up when you think about dating? Like, do you say, I'm comfortable being single and being alone because I just don't feel like I need to be out there right now? Or are you being like, fuck dating and fuck people. I'm just with myself. Fuck them
See, you
all.
looked at it as a negative. I looked at it as a positive.
See, you know how I
She's
roll.
she's comfortable, like she knows what she wants, and she's willing to kind of wait for that person and not settle. And I'm always thinking about who's telling you that you shouldn't be comfortable with that.
There's no
Because if you're
timeline.
there is no timeline. So I mean, and that's the asshole therapist in me looking at the positive.
See, and here I am. I'm like, bitch, why are you scared to get back out there? Okay, Stella, get your groove back. But also I think there's the timelines that we create for ourselves. There's biological clocks, which are complete bullshit.
And those create anxiety. Those
Yes.
create anxiety. I have to have a kid by I'm 26. I have to like do
And
this by
everybody
the time,
just
blah blah blah.
can we just freeze
Slow
our
the fuck
eggs and
down.
freeze your eggs and call it a day? Just
Listen,
you can
I
afford
always
it,
say
freeze your eggs.
the grass is always going to be green on the other side. It's
Yeah.
always going to be green on the side. But I can tell you, like fucking shit. I wish I didn't have no. I love my kids to death, but girl needs a break. You know what I mean? So like, don't be in a rush to kind of go through life so fast and not acknowledge the present and be happy and joyful for the moment. Again, I do love my kids, but a girl needs a break.
Let's be real. And I feel like we're at like we're never gonna be younger than we are now. And I think, I think I would never want to look back at my hot years, and be like, I was miserable the whole time because all I thought about was wanting a partner. And I missed out on being fun and having fun and going out with my friends and enjoying just time with friends and time not having any responsibility because all I was thinking about is I need a man, I need a man, I need a man, I need a man.
I just ask why. Like what's the purpose you're trying to fulfill? Is it because you feel fulfilled in life and you want to share that with someone? Okay, that makes sense. But if it's because you feel like they're replacing a void, and then okay, how can you get that void fulfilled in other ways? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, and there are unconventional ways. If having children is something that's important to you, there are unconventional ways of parenting. You don't have to be in the typical structure of find a husband and then have a baby, because if you're trying to rush that, I mean, you are going to possibly end up with a very uncomfortable situation. So I think there's other things.
Babies don't fix relationships.
Babies are not a band-aid.
No,
Babies
they're
are
not.
gonna, but maybe, I mean, who knows? You could find a friend who wants to have a baby with you, maybe, and you guys get along, and you could create a healthy co-parenting environment with a friend. Why not explore those options? And it doesn't have to be traditional. If you can afford to do it on your own and pay nannies, you want to do that? I mean, coronavirus.
Yeah, I just think that you have to understand and establish a good foundation for the relationship, because you could want all those things and have all those things and it still not work out. You know what I mean? Again, it's just enjoying the present. And I know that sounds like an asshole, but it's kind of true.
You know what I will say, realistic, like just keeping it real, keeping it a stack. I look back at when I lived in Miami and I was working out like 30 times a day, right? And I know I'm still thin. I still have some of my abs. Some of them are left. I haven't worked out in like 9 months, but whatever. I was literally in my best shape I've ever been in my life when I was on South Beach. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, God, I still thought I wasn't good enough. I was still focused on trying to be better. I was still focused on trying to find a relationship. I was so focused on trying to fill voids. I never stopped to enjoy it. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
stop and look in the mirror and be like, go off, bitch. Like, you are a bad bitch. I looked in the mirror and was like, you could do better. You could do better. And now I'm
I always
looking in
have
the mirror
that
and I'm
image
like,
of you with like the wings. It's a Halloween costume.
yes, I wore the angel wings and the
Yeah.
underwear. Let's call it what it
Yeah.
was. And the underwear. Was that the moment where you were like, wow, my gay ex-boyfriend really came out of the closet?
It's like, my boyfriend's hot.
So
Or my ex-boyfriend's hot.
you're like, so he's out. He's like out, like all the way out. Like there's like out of the closet and then there's like out. No, yeah, I just think enjoying the present is really important. And if you can afford to financially explore other options for having children, you don't have to try to find a man right away to rush through building a relationship so you could try to have a baby. Like, I see that happen.
I actually see a lot of more trends of couples not wanting to have kids.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I am one of those couples. And we actually talked about it on the first date because I was not wasting time. I was just like, yeah, my drinks kicked in. I was like, do you want kids in a family? Because he was like, no. And I was like, oh, praise God, you know. And we just talked about I asked him why, because I needed to make sure, you know, let's talk about why we don't want kids. And our reasons aligned. We were just like, there's just a lot of anxiety involved. And like, I just really enjoy, you know, having my own space, you know, focusing on maybe building a relationship, traveling, disposable income.
Oh, love that.
Doing whatever I want to do. And I just don't feel like, for my anxiety personally, I would be the best parent because I just feel like everything stresses me out. And I don't want to do that to a kid or myself. And then my partner was like the same. And I'm like, oh, praise God. Let's just. Now, if you hit us up at 45 and we're like, yeah, we want to adopt like a 15-year-old who has 3 years left with us, maybe.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, you adopt a kid, you get money. Like, that's not. The state pays you. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's crazy that in a lot of cases they don't pay the parent when they have the kid, when they're struggling.
Why would they? The kid, the parent. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The people who put the kids up for adoption, like a lot of the times they won't pay them, but they give it to somebody else and they pay them. But that's America. Okay. Before I get on that tangent, wait. I have another question. What are some tips for not holding space for my ex?
Well, so I'm going to answer this question with a lot of questions. When you're saying not holding space or holding space, what space are you holding on to? Are you holding on to anger? Are you holding on to sadness? Are you holding on to maybe hope that maybe the relationship's going to get back together? And kind of reflect on how holding on to the space is helping you, because maybe potentially you're holding on to the space because you don't feel ready to be in a relationship. So you figure, if I hold on to this space, it stops me from moving forward, because you might do that unintentionally. So maybe like reflect on why maybe you're potentially doing this, or what's the fear of letting go? Because sometimes we do things out of fear without realizing it. And then maybe potentially you're holding, again, this is like a lot of questions. Are there things that you have yet to learn from that relationship that maybe that's why you're holding on to it, because you just haven't come to those realizations yet? So it's a lot of questions to ask yourself, because it's not a simple, this is why, and this is not why. There's a lot more gray area in between that I think you have to kind of ask yourself a little bit more.
Maybe a little bit more exploration there, and maybe why am I holding this space?
Yeah.
Okay, I have another one, and this one is pretty funny because this is just good. Why do I keep attracting crazy people?
Why? Okay. This is funny, and I'm gonna tell you why it's funny. Because you're attracting people, but are you allowing them in? Because you can attract crazy, but you can be like, bye, bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it not be a problem. The question is, why are they coming into your life? Like, why are they staying in your life? Why aren't you letting them go when you realize that they are crazy? You know what I mean? Because crazy people are going to come left and right. It's a matter of what's stopping you from just letting them go at the beginning before they like create chaos in your life.
Even like when it comes to like messaging on apps, maybe you just need to have a quicker filter for when you start to see the signs of conversation that's uncomfortable for you, that you're able to just stop.
You know, it's funny that you're wearing that shirt about block his number 6.
I'm wearing a shirt that says block his number, sis.
Because I think people have a lot of issue about blocking people. And I'm like, why? What do you owe them?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, Why are you allowing someone to hold on to you when they don't deserve it? Block them. Like that's why people created the block, so that you can use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not about why are you attracting crazy, it's why crazy is staying.
Because there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of crazy out there.
Like, bitch, everywhere. Everywhere.
There's so much crazy. So I think that it really comes to like how can you not let that crazy impact you, deter you,
right.
And how can you not let it in?
Or like, even if those things happen, at what point do you let it, like, how can you make it stop earlier? You know what I mean? Because maybe they're not showing you the crazy at the outset, but once you see it, what more evidence do you need?
Yeah. And I don't think that there's anything you could do that would make you attract crazy people. Like, you know, I think sometimes it's just luck of the draw. And maybe you have a very friendly face. And so maybe more crazy people are more like, I have a resting bitch face. So maybe people that are crazy might be like, you know, he's not the one. He might curse me out. Whereas with you, maybe like, you know, they look really friendly. Like maybe I could just, you know, she's so approachable. Maybe I'll just hit her up. You know, you might be getting more of that. And also consider the source. Like if there's like an app that you're using where you're getting a lot more crazy people, maybe you just need to like not use that one. If you're just like all the guys in this app are like
well, and then also think about what's on your profile.
Oh, true.
You know what I mean? What's on your profile that says hit me up if you're crazy. And I'm not trying to like place blame on you. I just think that these are just questions that you need to ask, because you can't influence other people. You can only influence and change yourself.
True.
So that's why I'm asking you more questions about yourself, because you can only change yourself. You know what I mean?
So if maybe you said, you know, cuddling with a with a partner while watching The Office, instead of just I don't know, I like pizza and I don't know what's the show. I don't know, How I Met Your Mother. Maybe I don't know. Maybe getting more specific maybe you might see a difference in the demographic if you reconsider what is on your profile. If you're starting to get like one type of person consistently.
Right. Okay. So again, I made a video about online dating tips. One of the tips that I haven't posted yet, but one of the tips I say is have like 3 different scripts and test them out. And if one's not working, rotate it to the second one and see how like things change for you. And then the same with your pictures, like have different things to kind of test out, see how things are working and see if that changes things.
Ooh, when are you going to post that?
That's been sitting in my queue for like 2 months. I recorded it such a long time ago. I do need to post that.
Well, because my single people, they're going to want to go follow you, and we'll tell them how to follow you so they can.
Okay, so now
get
I have
their life. Oh, no pressure.
I have accountability.
No pressure.
It's done. I think it's also edited. It's just I got to post it. That's the only thing.
Well, if they subscribe, they'll get a notification when it pops up. So we'll just send them to go subscribe to your
Instagram followers.
Yeah, I don't even have my Instagram.
My 2 YouTube channel followers.
Wait, I was like, I don't even have you on Instagram.
So I don't post on my personal one. I post maybe once every 6 months.
Oh my God.
To be quite honest. I post more often on my business one. My business one I post like every day.
Well, that's the one that people need to be following anyway.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I don't got nothing interesting going on.
Yeah, they don't need to know what they don't need to know what color juice box your kids drank last night. They need to know you know, what they can do to not make a date weird as fuck. So sure. I have one more from a friend, and this person actually was pretty detailed. Oh, I have 2 more. Sorry. This person says, when it comes to dating during a pandemic, is it bad that I can't see myself getting serious with someone until the pandemic is over?
I think it's honest. And I think it just kind of plays into the narrative of the uncertainty, right? It's that same narrative, because you don't know where things are going. You don't know how you can see yourself being in a relationship with someone else. So what is your definition of serious, first of all? And how long does it take you to get there? You know what I mean? So like if you're saying I get serious with someone in 3 weeks, okay, like that seems a little too fast in my opinion. Yes. And if you want to date, maybe just figure out what you are okay with for right now. And just,
Okay.
again, those are your standards, and you stick to it. So if you want to be maybe casually dating, maybe virtual dating, but you don't want to get serious with anyone, then that's where you're at right now. That's okay. If you don't want to be
Yeah.
seriously dating, then don't seriously date. That's fine.
I mean, it's got to be a hard time to like. I I can't imagine. I mean, because it's just like I feel like you're gonna have one of two things happen with dating right now. Either you're
Mhm.
gonna have people who start to reprioritize things because they're realizing like I'm facing impending death at every doorknob that could have coronavirus on it. Like maybe I
Mhm.
should stop fucking around and like
Get serious.
get serious. And then you have people that might be looking as in like I am not gonna get serious with someone during this crazy ass time when we all might die from a doorknob. Let me just hang out and wait for this to be over.
I just, in all honesty, I feel like, and this is going to sound off rude, but I feel like people are more, okay, I'm going to say some people are more honest than they were pre-coronavirus. You're seeing how they're dealing with stress. You're seeing their political views. You're seeing how they stand on like Black Lives Matter movement, LGBTQ
Yes.
issues. You see how they're handling like masking issues, like, you know,
Oh,
anti-maskers. I feel like you see a lot more colors of people than you normally would.
yes.
And that's me looking at the positive.
No, I
But
listen, you see them true colors shining through because let me tell
right.
you, you thought you had issues dating people who didn't wear, prefer to wear condoms during sex. Like imagine
Hmm.
adding that onto they also don't wear masks and go out. You'd be like, okay, girl, maybe that's not what you want. Like maybe
Yeah.
that's like the new mask or the new condom at this point. And it's like, who have you been with when you weren't wearing a mask?
We got
Let's
there.
count.
Yankee Candle is going to be selling sanitization, smelling candles for Christmas, like this
Literally, it's
Lysol.
like, well, you know what I mean? Oh, Christmas. I don't even know if that's even going to be a thing, but um okay, I have one last one.
Mhm.
Okay, this is from the friend that actually put in some work in this question here. I am an introvert with an extroverted personality. Same. Initially when online dating, I come across extremely outgoing and build bonds easily this way over the phone/FaceTime. Once I actually meet them in person, I'm extremely shy, quiet, and in my head until I'm comfortable, which usually takes a few encounters. This often presents problems because it does not translate well for the person I'm on the date with, as it seems like I'm a totally different person than who they were speaking to. Help. Sincerely, ain't no second dates.
Okay. So I go back to maybe like, so if you're talking to someone for a while, maybe then being honest about maybe the anxieties that you're feeling before you meet them in person, so that they're like aware of, okay, like she's a little, or he's a little, or they're a little like shy at the
Okay.
beginning. So kind of letting them know like, hey, like, you know, I'm so excited to meet you, but I'm gonna be honest, I got like first date jitters. Just being honest with that. I always think it goes, and then it goes back to maybe having a date that's more interactive. So it's
Okay.
not necessarily you you know, exchanging questions back and back. Maybe you guys are doing something together that requires, you know, you working on a specific task, and that's where your focus is. The focus is on the task and not necessarily on you.
Got it.
um
So it gives
and
you guys
then
time to warm up.
yeah, and then think about the situations in which you are comfortable at the outset. What's different about those situations? What are things that you can use in that situation to dates, you know? So think of, because there are times when you're probably not as nervous. So what are
Mm.
different about those times, and how can you utilize that in the dates type of thing?
So when are you comfortable? When do you find that you're the most comfortable in your personal life, and how can you
Right.
take ideas from that and apply it
Right.
towards a date?
And
Uh,
maybe it's like a matter of like, maybe you're comfortable going to the same bar or whatever. Maybe just having the date go to that bar where you feel more comfortable, you feel more in your element. You know, you can, there are situations where you maybe feel comfortable and kind of just saying, hey, can we go here, or can we do this? You know, and the person's probably going to think you're taking initiative and planning the date. So it kind of looks good on your part.
they're like, oh,
Um,
she knows a good spot. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
So those might be good things to do.
Okay, would you recommend? Okay, do people even do like group dates? And I actually heard like someone that would ask friends to like show up randomly at like the place they were at and then act like it was an accident and be like, oh my god, to kind of like help them like ease into dates. I think that's just, I mean, I don't, obviously things are a lot more difficult now with coronavirus, but even
Hmm.
so, like, I can't guarantee that I would be that friend that would actually show up all that time. Be like, girl, you paying?
Hmm.
You buying? I'm flying, but
When I think of that, I'm thinking about, well, does that make the other person comfortable, or are you making them uncomfortable by doing that?
fair.
It might make you more comfortable, but it might make them
Them
less
less.
comfortable. So like you have to like you
Oh,
again, you want to do things that are comfortable for you, but you have to be like considerate of the other person. You know what I mean?
because then maybe they're
Um,
not going to be themselves.
right. Or maybe they don't know how to be. Okay, it's kind of like asking your mom to show up on a first date. um no, you know what I mean, because that's someone that then they're like, oh, that's their friend in their life. Like if I don't make a good impression, and I have to make a good impression with their friend and with them,
Oof,
it creates a lot more pressure.
fair.
So I don't necessarily recommend that. I understand that it does make people more comfortable, but I'm just like I'm thinking about the other person.
You know what? That is, God, think about that other person. Wow, yikes. How soon would you wait until you introduce people to like your friends and family? Do you
Oh
encounter that
God.
question a lot?
No, actually, no, I don't. Because that's personal preference. So that's not
Fair.
necessarily like a therapist thing. I can tell you that my husband meeting my mom was fucking atrocious. It's like a story that
No.
my husband tells all the time. My mother told my husband, and I quote, make sure you double bag it with my daughter.
No. Wait
And I
a
looked at my
second.
mom and I'm like, no, this bitch
Wait.
didn't.
Wait.
So had it been my way, I probably would have waited another 3 years. You know what I mean? If I knew she was
So
going to say that.
now we see why you studied therapy. Got it.
I love my mom, but she has no fucking filter. And I'm like, oh my God.
Your mom said, make sure you double back it with my daughter.
She said, make sure you, my mom is so offensive. She said, make sure you double bag it. She said, Hispanic girls give it away easier. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, what is happening right now?
Was she
Like,
drinking?
oh my God. Probably.
Fingers
Oh my
crossed. I
God.
pray your mother was drunk. And so
Oh,
I'm assuming this was like a long time ago. So you guys were like younger, probably. Like,
I've I've been with my husband. I say it so like disgustingly, but I love my husband. I've been with him for 13 years. I've been with my husband for
holy,
a long time.
that's like college, girl. So imagine
Yeah.
he's like college age, and your mama's like double bag it with my daughter. I would shit my pants.
I'm like, what? Oh my God. I was like,
That
I can't believe this
is
person. Like,
priceless.
I know.
Priceless. Priceless.
So it depends on personal preference. Had I known that was gonna go down, I probably would have waited a little bit longer.
Like,
So,
oh, you're like, mom, 13 years. We'll talk about it in 13 years.
oh God.
OMG.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know if you could leave these single people, people who are, I'd actually would like to do a relationship, like a episode for people that are in relationships.
I'm down.
Questions.
Sure.
Okay, yes, we're gonna come back and we're gonna do that because because now I gotta
Of
go make
course, if
my
your
list.
antidepressants want me back, if they want to refill their prescription, of course.
Oh, refilling the prescription. That was good.
Girl,
That was good.
I try.
I am stealing it and putting it on a t-shirt because let me just tell you, refill your prescription. No, it's gonna happen. If you could leave the single people that are out there in this damn struggle, they got a whole ass, all this shit going on, and then trying to find
Mhm,
love and meeting strangers during a pandemic, will keep letting them
mhm.
down. What would you say? You could leave them with one thought.
If I can leave them in one thought, oh damn, that's hard.
I know, put you on the spot.
You sure enough did. I
I
think
guess
it's more.
double bag it. I guess that would be the double bag it. That's the
If you
takeaway.
ever sell merch, I authorize you to use that if you want.
Double
Um,
bag it.
I think it's more. Think of it more about a journey about learning about yourself than it is about learning about love.
Mm.
I think that would be my thing.
I will tell you, dating has taught me more about myself than being single ever did. Because being single, I'm not really examining as much. But when I have to put myself in someone else's eyes and have to hear that back, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, I did that? I didn't even know I did that. Oops. Oops. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna shut the fuck up forever. But then I'm like, okay, how can I grow from this? So I agree. I think that's right.
Yeah. It's you never stop learning. You never stop growing. You never stop working.
Oh my God, when did you get so smart, girl? Where was this advice in high school? I needed you, okay? And we were just talking about Sierra and making fun of some people I'm not gonna say on mic, but I gotta find our
Life
little
was
ratchet photo.
so. Oh
I
my
have
God.
it.
Oh,
I think I have it. I
do
think
you?
I have it. It's one of me and you in the parking lot on the way to Grad Bash.
I feel like you sent me a picture of it.
Yeah, I'm in like a baggie, of course. I was in a
And
Burlington Coat Factory special.
I'm wearing my wedges with my gel slicked back. I was keeping the gel business afloat
Look,
in
you
high
were
school.
so flammable with all that ISO plus, girl. I was like, whew, fried, dyed, and laid to the side, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Between you and Gabby, I don't know who had more grease. Grease is the word.
Mm-hmm.
I have my little Afro puff. Wait, I have my little Afro puff. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my little cornrows, and then oh my God, a hot mess. I'm gonna find some embarrassing photos and post them with this episode. Like this is the professional I found for you guys. Okay, listen.
I'm all about transparency and kind of just making the experience more comfortable for people. So I don't mind being transparent about shit. Like that's okay with me.
Well, I love that. We love that. I'm gonna just go ahead and speak for these antidepressants. We love that. How can these people get some more of your nuggets of wisdom? Where can they find those?
Okay. I'm gonna say it, and then I'm gonna say a little caveat. So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Cloud CLOUD 09 therapy. Same for Instagram and Twitter.
Cloud 09 therapy. Let me look this up now. I gotta go follow now. Hang on.
I say it with the caveat because it is so hilarious, and no shade, but there's another therapist, same name, 10 minutes from my office. They get us confused. So definitely go by my business name. Don't Google search because you might get the other person. So yeah.
Oh, this is cute. Okay. Oh, look at these. Oh my God, are these? Okay, I like this. Anini Leaks. You're going there. Okay. I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
This is good. This is good. Okay.
I'm really trying. I'm coming up with these like Thursday therapy rants to put on my social media. They're like a work in progress.
I love it.
I'm trying to come up with YouTube videos, just like providing info to the masses. So
I love it. Listen, I'm all about getting info, and I believe that the type of listeners that I have, they wouldn't be listening if they didn't want to grow and learn. So thank you so much literally thank you for being on here. Like you don't even know.
Of course.
And we have not caught up. You know what? Last time we hung out, we went on a date with you were in town. It was you and my first boyfriend. And we went on a date in like 2010, 9, 10.
He was cute.
Oh.
Was he nice to you at least?
No, he was very nice. He was very nice. There was no hope in that like growing into adulthood, but it was, your college boyfriends. That was what, 2009?
That was a while ago.
God, it's been like 11 years.
Yeah.
We went to like Applebee's or something, and I was like, girl.
We did go to Applebee's.
My boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, my boyfriend. Hot mess.
He was nice. He was cute. I was like, oh, look at him. Anthony growing into himself.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do, learn and grow. Oh my God. Well, I'm going to get this episode together, guys. You know how to follow this show. Subscribe on iTunes and what's that thing called? Spotify. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
iTunes and Spotify. It's, Depressed Funny People. You can follow me on Instagram at Depressed Funny People. You can also, there's a YouTube channel I just created for Depressed Funny People. I don't really know how to I don't even know if you could I guess you could search Depressed Funny People on YouTube. I don't even know how. I'm like Nana over here. Let me see. Is that how you Depressed Funny People?
Can't you put the links in like your Instagram or Spotify or no?
Yeah, I have to put it on my link tree because no, you can't even find it on YouTube. Whatever. I'm gonna wait. It's on there. Okay. Look for Depressed Funny People and then search through YouTube. Go past all the videos and you'll see my channel. Okay.
I love like the last 3 minutes of your video. You're trying to do tech stuff. I gotta get my Google Voice together.
I'm like Nana's trying to get her life together. All right. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. We will have Miss Jessica back on the show. And guys, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, try your best to just keep your shit together the best you can in whatever ways you know how that aren't hurting other people.
Make sure to take your medication, bro.
Take your medication, girl. You got it.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.